Minister, as you are aware, the Government's third national strategy on domestic, sexual and gender-based violence commits to a doubling of the number of refuge spaces, and that ambitious strategy is very welcome. My two counties of Cavan and Monaghan are two of the counties that don't have a domestic refuge centre, so I am very anxious that such provision should be advanced as quickly as possible. The last update I had some time ago was that there were a number of sites in both counties being considered. So I'd just like to know at what stage is the particular proposed project for Cavan Monaghan at, and if there are preferred sites or if a site has been chosen yet.
I want to thank Deputy Brendan Smith for raising this very important issue around the need to provide refuge centres in counties Cavan and Monaghan for victims of domestic abuse. And as the Deputy rightly points out, it is one of those areas that does not have those supports in place at the moment. And the Deputy has raised this matter consistently, both with myself and with the Department of Justice, and I'm glad to have an opportunity to give him an update on what he's been campaigning for a very long time. Last June, Government launched Zero Tolerance, our third national strategy on domestic, sexual and gender-based violence. One of the overarching goals is to ensure that everyone who needs a refuge space will get one. Over the lifetime of the strategy, we intend to double the number of refuge spaces, bringing it to 280, and to review the accommodation services for victims of domestic, sexual and gender-based violence and identify priority locations where between 50 and 60 new refuge places are needed. Further analysis identified 12 locations nationwide where delivery of 98 family refuge spaces would have the most impact if prioritised. TUSA reviewed identified a requirement for 8 family places in Cavan Monaghan for prioritisation. A group of stakeholders has met a number of times in 2023 with a view to beginning plans to establish the refuge in Cavan Monaghan. Key statutory bodies including TUSA, the Department of Housing, the Department of Justice, Cavan and Monaghan County Councils and An Garda Síochána have been engaged in these meetings along with local domestic violence organisation Termon and Safe Ireland. The current focus is, as the Deputy rightly pointed out, on identifying a site and initiating a more formalised project. The nature of refuge developments as capital projects means that timelines for capital projects apply, and at this early stage many factors can influence the speed at which a project is delivered, such as the identification of a suitable site or building, planning processes, tendering and the appointment of contractors. However, as an identified priority area, every effort is being made to ensure that supports are in place to achieve delivery of the refuge and support services in Cavan Monaghan as quickly as possible. As the Deputy will be aware of the intention to establish a new domestic violence agency at the start of 2023, also to complement the delivery of services.
First of all, I want to thank the Minister for his detailed reply, and I'm very glad that you mentioned the priority is being attached to the provision of a refuge centre in Cavan Monaghan. I also welcome the fact, Minister, that you refer to the very, very important work of Safe Ireland and Termon Domestic Services in Cavan Monaghan as well, to do excellent work dealing with people in a very vulnerable position. And unfortunately, over the last number of years, we all know of the increased violence particularly against women. And Minister, in our constituency work, we all come across families who are going through the terrible torment and going through a very, very difficult time. And I know in my own local authorities in Cavan and Monaghan, the housing section work as closely and as positively as they can with people who find themselves in that predicament. At the moment, the only hostel accommodation available for victims from Cavan Monaghan is either in Dundalk or Meath, and for Northwest Cavan in Sligo. We all know that if a person or a family have to leave their home, it's a very difficult situation, and it's even more difficult when there are children attending school. They're dislocated from their locality, from their friends. So I think it's very important that we prioritise the provision as soon as possible, Minister.
Thank you very much. And again, thank the Deputy for raising this important matter, and I can assure the Deputy that delivering refuge spaces in Cavan Monaghan area is a priority, so it is for the Department. We are in the processes of identifying that location, working with the various different bodies, and to see where that location can be provided. We have to provide these spaces for very vulnerable people, and that's why we have a very comprehensive programme now around domestic, sexual and gender-based violence in our third national strategy. I can inform the Deputy that Termon Domestic Violence Service is a community-based support service delivering a range of supports to women impacted by domestic abuse across the counties of Cavan and Monaghan, including support groups, outreach support and court accompaniment services. Termon is engaged with other stakeholders around early stage considerations for planning of a refuge for the Cavan Monaghan area, and I can inform the Deputy that it is in the process of a merger to come under Safe Ireland, which is expected to come into effect by the end of June. TUSA is supporting the process. From information provided to TUSA, it is expected that there will be a renewed focus on refuge development for Cavan Monaghan once the organisational processes are completed. So I think this merger will provide a renewed impetus to provide the necessary services.
Very much welcome again the fact that you talk about the importance of the work of Safe Ireland and Termon at a local level in Cavan Monaghan, and I welcome the partnership that will occur with those particular groups. And I want to take the opportunity again to commend officials in all the statutory agencies that you referred to in your initial reply who are involved in advancing this project. I know they are as committed as we are, but again, even with the best will in the world, it takes too long to get things delivered in this country, so it does. So, Minister, you are giving the message and I welcome it, and if you can keep sending that message to the people who are charged with implementing government decisions, is that the utmost urgency must be attached to the provision of this much-needed accommodation for people who find themselves in an awfully difficult position. And again, I refer to the fact children have to relocate from, bad enough relocating from your home to somewhere else nearby, but having to travel a long distance away from your friends, away from school, etc. It's awfully disruptive for children. And naturally, we have to try to support as a state those people in those vulnerable positions as strongly as we can. Thank you, Alas Concorda.
Minister to conclude.
Raising a very important matter about the need for refuge spaces in domestic, sexual and gender-based violence in the Cavan Monaghan area. And I can assure the Deputy that the key statutory bodies, TUSA, the Department of Housing, Justice, Cavan and Monaghan County Councils, and Garda Síochána, along with Termon and Safe Ireland, are working very closely together to identify that location so that these services can be provided as quickly as possible. As I say, they are capital projects. They do at times come with challenges, but we're determined to see that delivered. And I think the merger with Termon with Safe Ireland, I think, will give a renewed impetus and a very much focused delivery for these services that are badly needed.